Oh my God, I'm so sorry, guys. Well, fuck me. Okay. I should have checked the comments. Hey guys, it's me, Sterling. How you doing? Apparently I've been muted this whole time, so that's great. Oh man, you guys just missed the best thing ever. Okay, well, let's kick it off with a simultaneous squeeze. We're back. All right, so everybody, let's take a deep breath in. Take a sip of air at the top. Hold it and squeeze. And exhale. Awesome. Cool. Well, I want to appreciate my diehard ride or dies for sticking around while I've been on mute for that whole time. I did that because of this morning's coffee and click up. Somebody joined our coffee and click up and they were playing me on Facebook. I had to mute my live streaming software and I forgot to put that back on there. So I know who to blame. Me, ultimately, but I know who else to blame too. Anyway, so what we're going to be doing today is a subject called what makes vagus nerve stimulation so effective when you use ultrasound. So what makes ultrasound hands down the best vagus nerve stimulation technology on the planet, right? So what makes it so good? This is a continuation of a multi-part series on vagus nerve stimulation and the top devices that you can use to do so, okay? So if you can tell, you could tell by the icon that we used for today's video, it says it's enzymes stupid, okay? Now what are enzymes? Enzymes are basically a small nanomachine that exists inside of your body that help you convert complex carbohydrates into simple, easy to digest sugars. So that's what an enzyme does. But there are all kinds of enzymes throughout your body. There are enzymes that convert tryptophan into serotonin, and then they convert that into melatonin so you can sleep. So without enzymes, your whole body would stop functioning. Every process of recycling and converging and expelling waste and eating food to take a protein and convert it into amino acids so you can build DNA and build your own tissue, all depends on the function of enzymes. Enzymes are really important. Some of you may be taking digestive enzymes, for instance. You take digestive enzymes with your food, and that helps you digest food better so you can absorb more of the nutrients, so you don't have undigested food in your gut. That's what an enzyme is. So if you can tell, jokingly, the pseudo subtitle of today's video is that it's enzymes stupid. And that really means that it's ultrasound's effect on enzymes primarily that makes it so effective at stimulating your vagus nerve, at having the exact type of effects that are desirable when it comes to looking at why would someone choose vagus nerve stimulation in the first place. And fortunately for all of you, before I fixed the audio problem today, I was talking about an article that I had read earlier today, and I'm going to put it here in the chat, which also shows a really incredible potential for vagus nerve stimulation with ultrasound and ultrasound in general. So what this article shows, and we'll get into the enzyme stuff a little bit more, but this is related to ultrasound in general. So this article is called "Slowing Down the Clock," and it's about a key discovery that was recently made in discovering why the body ages so much at a certain time. So when you get older, what happens is your mitochondria, the battery cells of the battery packs of your cell, they're unable to intake calcium enough. They're unable to take in enough calcium, and this impairs their function, thereby leading to cellular decay and ultimately death. That causes inflammation, that causes aging. So your macrophages, which are immune cells, kind of like white blood cells that eat stuff, but macrophages are an incredible powerhouse of your immune system, also are very dependent on this mitochondria calcium ion exchange. So as you get older, the mitochondria in your immune cells lose their ability to process calcium as they age, which leads to chronic inflammation and accelerated aging. That's the first contention of this article. The second contention is that the researchers believe that increasing calcium intake and uptake into mitochondria inside of the macrophages could prevent harmful inflammation, thereby slowing the aging process. And that's the second contention. The third contention is that this discovery opens up new therapeutic strategies for age-associated inflammation and could potentially impact cardiometabolic and neurodegenerative diseases, which a lot of diseases happen because your mitochondria basically start to fail. They start to let go. When your mitochondria fail, your whole energy system fails. So you don't want to be caught without mitochondria. Now, you hear this and you go, cool, that's awesome, but how could I benefit from this? Well, if you're already in our program and you already have our ultrasound, then you're in luck. Because if you've also watched on the school account, if you've gone to the online course where we host our videos, and you watch that specific video that talks about how does ultrasound specifically work and what's the history of ultrasound. If you don't know what that video is, go look at it in the classroom. But it talks about how does ultrasound primarily work in a cell, like inside of a cell. And the area that ultrasound works is on the calcium ion membranes, which means that when you stimulate any living cell with ultrasound, it forces the calcium ion membrane channel to open up and increase the uptake of calcium. And that's the effect of ultrasound. And that's been demonstrated many, many times in research, in visual research, and in human research studies. So we know that ultrasound increases the uptake of calcium into cells, including into mitochondria. This also applies to macrophages. This is likely why when you apply ultrasound to the spleen, which is a huge place where macrophages sit and reside, that you see such a heavy anti-inflammatory effect, because you're activating the macrophages that may be impaired due to aging. So as you get older, the importance of using your ultrasound is by far outweighs the time costs, which are just a few minutes a day. So, again, if you're getting past a certain age, you have no excuses anymore to not be doing your ultrasound at all. But here's the other cool thing. If you scroll to the very, very, very bottom of this article, they also add, furthermore, the UVA, University of Virginia, health scientists suspect that the mechanism they have discovered will hold true not just for macrophages of your immune system, but for many other related immune cells generated in the bone marrow. This is a very important thing. A client of ours sent me a research study a few years ago that tuned my attention to the importance of your bone marrow in your femur, which is where red blood cells are produced. And guess what also can stimulate the bone marrow production of immune cells? Ultrasound. So what you're going to find in your classroom, and I'll make an announcement here very soon, is a specific ultrasound protocol for bone marrow and for macrophage health. I'll give you some spots, some times, some intensities. I'll give you the full protocol for that. So look forward to that. That's actually, I'm probably downplaying it. I should be going like, oh my God, this is amazing. But it is truly amazing. It's actually very cool. It's actually really, really good news. So yeah, that's, I'm also going to post that in the Facebook, because I'm on the YouTube channel. Okay, I can hear you on YouTube. You may have been muted. Okay, yeah. Cool. We got some cross-watching on YouTube and Facebook because the audio issue. Thanks everybody so much for reminding me of that too. So cool. So that's exciting, right? That's pretty huge. I would say most likely the contention that I made yesterday, just to summarize, was that as we go forward, so typically as we see it right now, most people consider their households to need to have a TENS unit. I would say the vast majority of households have an electrical stimulation device inside their household, like a TENS device for muscle stimulation. Most people have one of those sitting around somewhere. And far, far fewer have an ultrasound sitting at home. But I think that process will swap. And if you go to a hospital, there are no such TENS units in a hospital. Have you ever wondered why? If you go to a hospital, they aren't they aren't running electricity through a person's body. But at a hospital, they have $250,000 ultrasound systems so they can image into your body. So I think that actually that trend will change, where you'll find in most people's homes is that they'll have an ultrasound at home, and that you'll find in hospitals they'll still have ultrasound always in a hospital. However, what you're going to find more in a hospital are going to be electrical stimulation patches that you stick on your neck that are connected to a cart-based system that can vastly stimulate your vagus nerve. Now, don't let that fool you, because what that would infer that is, oh, well, electricity must be more complex. Electricity is so much more complex that they barely even understand what it's doing to the vagus nerve. The effects of electricity aren't very well understood. They just know that if you increase electricity, you work on the sodium ion channels, not calcium, and you force stimulation of a neuron. So that could be helpful, right? There could be cases for that. But when it comes to the vagus nerve, it's very important to regulate things properly. And I think that the systems to do that with a TENS-based system with an electrical stimulator, you're going to have a system that's like $80,000 in a hospital. That's on a cart where they can put 2 stickers on your neck and do some kind of extremely complex waveform to initiate changes in your vagus nerve tone in real time. So I think that in a hospital setting where they can afford to have an $80,000 to $100,000 machine that they can stick on your neck and do vagus nerve stimulation, I think hospitals in our lifetime will be doing vagus nerve stimulation with electricity in a hospital. In a hospital, that's where you should go get a TENS unit, because that can carefully regulate blood pressure, heart rate, mood, tone, pain, digestion. They could probably really carefully tune into it in the hospital, but that's going to require these $80,000 machines. Whereas with ultrasound, you need more generalized stimulation of the enzymes that make the vagus nerve work. And then you can also, with ultrasound, you can do it at home. You don't need a cart-based system. And I've seen ultrasound systems that are about the size of your phone that sell for about $6,000 that can do imaging and everything. So I think that on our lifetime, we'll see far fewer TENS units at home, far more ultrasound systems at someone's house, and a tons of TENS units in hospitals so I think the whole process will switch and swap. So in the meantime, as we're not in that distant future, that golden age of medicine that I think will happen, that would be called the bioelectric medicine future. I mean, think about it. Instead of them giving you drugs to manage something in the hospital, they'll just put 2 stickers on your neck and start stimulating. That is absolutely going to happen. We'll see that in our lifetime. So that'll be very exciting. But electricity requires so much complex stuff that you're probably never going to see that in a consumer device at home with electricity. But what you can see at home with a consumer grade device is ultrasound. And we're going to talk about ultrasound. How is ultrasound so effective at stimulating the vagus nerve? And we're going to focus in on one enzyme in particular that is very important for the function of the vagus nerve. Some of you have heard me mention acetylcholine. I'm going to put in the chat, hopefully, a link to a picture of this whole process so you can somewhat see it. Hopefully, Facebook doesn't do a great job of posting the pictures that I like to post. But if you look in the chat on Facebook, no, it's not letting me. It's not particularly liking me doing this. Sometimes I'm able to post the link to a picture. Let me try this again. One more second. Give me a second. This could be cool. Let's see. Okay, cool. So you can kind of see that display. That's a synapse. That's where the synapse between 2 neurons meet. That's where the acetylcholine is active. And there's a certain enzyme in that area called acetylcholine esterase. I'll spell that out in the chat too. Acetylcholine esterase. So acetylcholinesterase is the name of one particular type of enzyme that eats acetylcholine, and acetylcholine is like the neurotransmitter of the vagus nerve. So whatever you can do to boost acetylcholine in the synapses is good for the vagus nerve in general, in particular. So if you can boost acetylcholine, you can boost that sense of relaxation. That's why when we do the simultaneous squeeze at the very beginning of this video, you feel that rush of warmth and maybe that coolness, that minty feeling, that relaxation feeling, because you're releasing acetylcholine in your body in mass in a large amount. So acetylcholinesterase is an enzyme that's actually quite large. Let me see if I can potentially find a picture of that, so you can at least kind of get a sense of what does the enzyme look like, sort of. It's like not super intuitive, but let's see. All right. I'm going to post a picture in the chat. This could work. I'm not certain. It's going to be from Wikipedia. Let's see. Does this work? Looks like it might be working. Posting? Yeah. Okay, cool. So you can see in the chat the image of what acetylcholinesterase looks like. It's a rainbow type of picture. I'm going to put that on YouTube as well. I don't know if YouTube will display the pictures, but it could. So acetylcholinesterase is a super complex and large structure made out of a lot of amino acids. It's encoded by your DNA, and your DNA basically builds acetylcholinesterase from scratch using enzymes. And acetylcholinesterase has a specific pocket in it where acetylcholine goes into it and it snaps it in half, like a little crack it like a bone, and then it separates choline and acetic acid back into two parts, making it no longer able to work. So when you do ultrasound and you apply ultrasound to acetylcholinesterase, to the enzyme, you actually slow down that acetylcholine cracking process. So if you slow down the enzyme that's destroying acetylcholine, you increase acetylcholine levels in the synapse, which then also increases vagus nerve tone. So there are a couple ways that people can do this, and that you've done this before. There are certain drugs that people take for things like Alzheimer's, and they're particularly known for their pharmacology and their ability to inhibit acetylcholinesterase. And those increase acetylcholine in the brain and the body. They give you good relaxing effects. I'll post one of them here in the chat. Galantamine. Now, galantamine can be purchased on Amazon. I'll put something in the chat here. Galantamine. I'll put something in the chat for you guys to look at buying potentially if you're very interested in it. Now, the reason people take galantamine is to induce lucid dreams. It's very interesting. So here it is. And that's funny because many people who use ultrasound for the very first time will notice that they have some pretty vivid dreams as well. So I'm going to post two links here. The one I would probably recommend would be the liquid dropper, but it's a little bit more expensive. However, it's more pure, so you're going to have good bioavailability on that one. So the second link I sent there, I'll put that on YouTube as well for you guys. So that's called galantamine, and that's an acetylcholinesterase inhibitor, and that's going to increase acetylcholine in the synapses, and that's going to increase vagal tone. So you can increase that through some naturally derived things. Galantamine I believe comes from an herb. It's not a pharmaceutical, but it does have a good effect on the vagus nerve. Now, the way that you take galantamine is about 4 milligrams or 8 milligrams right as you're going to bed. And then if you wake up at some time in the morning, that's even better, because you want to take a second dose around 1 to 2 to 3 a.m. So for some of you who are having issues going back to sleep, you can use galantamine one more time, and it will usually put you right to sleep, and you'll have incredibly lucid dreams, most likely, or at least you'll have incredibly vivid dreams from that. So that's really cool. That's a really cool effect. So that's just to give you an example of the pharmacological impacts on the enzyme acetylcholinesterase. But we also know from research data and human data is that ultrasound itself has a very similar effect on the enzyme. Ultrasound tends to slow down and inhibit acetylcholinesterase, which thereby influences the increase in acetylcholine. So therefore, when you use ultrasound on the vagus nerve, you're basically at the end of the end outcome is that you see an increase in vagal tone by stimulating the vagus nerve with ultrasound. So that's, generally speaking, why it's so effective. That's one of its most prized uses. And that same effect can be applied to different locations in the body. So like, for instance, your liver is a big area where acetylcholinesterase is occurring. And it can happen too fast, too slow. If you have liver failure, it might happen too slowly, and you might have a detox problem. So using ultrasound there in the liver can be really effective. We also know that using ultrasound on the pancreas is good for diabetes type 2. Using it on the spleen is great for autoimmune conditions. Using it on the sacrum is good for bladder and endocrine regulating issues. Using it on the thymus, right here in the chest, is really good for immune function. So there's a lot of locations that you can stimulate to boost glandular function. I have a client right now in our phase 2 program who no longer needs to take her thyroid medication because she's been doing stimulation of her vagus nerve in her neck. So that's helping. So acetylcholine is a paracrine signaling hormone, which means that if you have a gland that's dysregulated, if you increase the vagus nerve, you can increase glandular function, which means you can make more saliva in your mouth, make more tears from your eyes. So people with Sjogren's syndrome can benefit from that potentially if you do it properly. And then people with thyroid dysfunction can also as well benefit. And I've seen that in a lot of cases, is that vagus nerve stimulation with ultrasound is allowing a lot of females to not have to take their thyroid medication. And they're not just doing it because I'm telling them to. They're just doing it because I missed a week and I didn't have any bad effects like I would normally. So there's clear-cut benefits to ultrasound. But I think the main thing that you have to know is, how is it working, right? We can't just accept that ultrasound VNS is good, it feels good, etc. I think in this day and age, when every patient needs to be very informed, you need to know how is this allegedly working, and can we validate that? So that is all to say that why is ultrasound VNS so good is because it's so diverse in the kinds of enzymes that it can affect. And I think that one of the best use cases for ultrasound in the near future is going to be for stimulating in the brain to induce enzymatic changes around serotonin for depression, dopamine for focus and memory and attention, for ADHD, and then also for acetylcholine as it relates to Alzheimer's disease. And so I'm actually working with a couple researchers who are famous for doing ultrasound stimulation of the brain to treat Alzheimer's and dementia. So if you want to learn more about that, then stick around in this Facebook group, because I always talk about this kind of work. I'm really, 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 really excited about ultrasound in particular, and the many different ways that it can be used. For the main purposes of the vagus nerve group, obviously, I'm mainly going to stick to ultrasound's effects on the vagus nerve. But I mean, I'm sure you wouldn't mind if I mentioned from time to time that some of the same things that make ultrasound so good on the vagus nerve can also benefit the brain too. And my background actually, before I ever got in the vagus nerve, was strictly working on the brain with ultrasound. So anyway, yesterday we posted a couple of links. I won't post the links again today. You can go back and watch part 1 of this multi-part series on top vagus nerve products. And I posted 3 manufacturers of top-of-the-line VNS devices that can accomplish this for you. So I would highly recommend that you go do that and check out that video. But what else? Yeah, anyway, lastly, what I wanted to say is that, again, for those who are clients already, who already have their ultrasound, keep your eyes out on the school group. I will be posting a follow-up to this study here that shows that you can decrease inflammatory-related aging by increasing the choline uptake of a cell, and we all know that ultrasound does that already naturally. So we'll be posting a specific protocol for that. And I do suspect that the folks who are in our program are, again, seeing those exact kinds of effects, seeing the benefits of that too. So a drug-free intervention for staying young forever is awesome, right? And also, don't they use ultrasound on the face for beautification too? I think one of the top sets of products for facial rejuvenation is ultrasound. And so it makes sense that would be an anti-aging technology. So anyway, keep your vagus nerve young, keep your whole body young, keep your brain young, all that kind of stuff. You want to do that, right? And you don't need to resort to drinking the blood of children, okay? So don't do that, all right? Unless you're a billionaire and you can get away with it. But for the most part, I don't think you need to be smearing, baby's blood all over your body in order to stay young. I'm not making any claims here, but I'm just saying, yeah, you probably don't need to do that. You could probably do ultrasound instead. Maybe. No humans were harmed in the making of this youthful person. Okay. So anyway, yeah, honestly, for the most part, I think we covered the vast majority of what needs to be covered. Tomorrow, we'll be talking a little bit more about electrical stimulation and some of the top products in there, what makes electrical stimulation work so good. I think a lot more people will absolutely want to and need to catch that video. But for the most part, in terms of the top technologies for vagus nerve stimulation, it's going to come down to ultrasound for sure, hands down. But go watch yesterday's video where we posted the links in the chat on how to acquire some of those products. We manufacture some of those things. So if you need something from us, we're certainly happy to help. But anyway, cool. Well, that'll wrap it up. I'm going to wrap it up on YouTube. Thanks, guys, on YouTube so much for watching. And then we're going to end it over on Facebook. Thanks so much, and I'll see you again tomorrow.